Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share how I reorganized my fabric stash in a way that I think is really going to change how I create and find inspiration for future projects. I thought it would be fun to bring you along and share the whole process. Hopefully it'll give you a few ideas for organizing your own sewing room and creating a space that inspires you to sew. Walking into my sewing room like this was honestly just draining. Every time I wanted to start a new project, I'd open these overfilled drawers hoping to find inspiration. But instead I'd end up digging through piles of fabric. I tried folding everything, I tried rolling everything, I'd even stack them as neatly as I could. But as you can see, it just got out of hand. It became really hard to find what I was looking for, and even harder to remember what I actually had in my stash. My bottom drawer got so full that fabric started falling behind it, and now I can't even close it. And it wasn't just the drawers. I had fabric in baskets, another closet, and even stuffed inside this little ottoman. Finally, I just decided I'd had enough. I set aside a few days to completely rethink how I organize my fabric. I knew it would take me time, but I also knew that if I got this right, I'd spend a lot less time searching and a lot more time sewing, designing, and finding inspiration. I started by emptying out the drawers, the baskets, and just sorting through my fabrics. Separating things that were for upcycle projects, fabrics that I can make actual garments that were at least a yard or more. Any remnants went into their own pile, and then I also created a donation pile. My idea was to organize my fabric as bolts so I could stack them vertically in the drawers. I started by measuring the depth and the height of the drawer first. And for mine, it measured just over 6 inches, and then for the depth, it was over around 12. But in order for me to insert and remove the bolts easily, I figured I should do a 6 by 11 bolt or cardboard. I first tried cutting cardboard from recycled boxes, and that became very tedious, and I didn't even have enough cardboard. Next, I tried foam board, and the foam board was just, for me, hard to cut. I didn't have the tools, and the edges were just too jagged. So I went to the craft store and I walked around to see what I could find that would really work well for this. So I bought these plastic cake boards. I wasn't sure what they were. I'd never heard of them, but the width seemed to be almost perfect. I can create at least 3 bolts out of each of these, and each package came with 3 of these. So that's 9 per package, and they were 40% off. So they ended up to be really cost effective. So now I just took each of these and I used my clear quilting ruler, which is exactly 6 inches wide, and I cut each board into 3 bolts of 6 by 11. Next, I took each piece of fabric. I first cut out a little swatch, and I used this 3 by 3 piece of index card as a template so that they would all be the same size. My plan was to cut the swatches and pin them on my cork board so I can easily see at a glance exactly what fabrics I had. Also, it gives me a little bit of inspiration when I'm sitting in my chair drawing. I can look at the fabrics that I have and decide what I'm going to be designing or sewing next. Once I finished wrapping all the fabric, I laid everything out on my cutting table along with the swatches. And honestly, this was the moment I knew I made the right decision. For the first time, I could actually see my fabric collection all in one place. It looked organized, it felt inspiring, and I couldn't wait to put everything back in the drawers. Since I already had some Bristol board, I cut it into 3x3 cards. Then I stapled each swatch onto a card and wrote down the fabric content and how much I had. Now I can pin them to the cork board, and whenever I'm planning a new project, I can easily pull a few off, compare fabrics, mix and match different combinations without even opening the drawers. And the best part is the corkboard now actually looks like a piece of artwork. Now when I walk into my sewing room, everything just feels so different. I can open a drawer, immediately see what I have. Instead of searching through those piles of fabric, I can start thinking about what I want to make next. I even had some time left over to organize my threads and notions and some sewing tools. Every time I sit down at my cutting table, I can look up at that cork board and new ideas just seem to come a little bit more easily. It may sound a little silly, but having an organized space really does make me feel more creative. It's relaxing, it's inspiring, and it makes me want to spend more time in here. I hope this video inspires you to find an organization system that works for you, for your space, because I think the time you spend getting organized comes back to you every time you sit down to sew. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. And if you found it helpful, don't forget to give it a like. See you in the next one.